Welcome back to The World Tonight. We want to talk about domestic terrorism, and my guest to discuss all of this is former U.S. Marshal Matthew Fogg. Sir, good of you to join us today. Listen, Attorney General Merrick Garland took domestic terrorism head on, pledging to attack it with the full resources of the federal government. Do you think we will see measurable change to combat domestic terrorism here in America?
I don't really think so. I mean, as far as the change is concerned, because when I look back on the history of my career in the law enforcement and Justice Department, we always had contingency plans for dealing with terrorism. They had this group called the Domestic Security Alliance Council, and it covers all of when I was looking at this plan, it covers basically the same things. I mean, networking with private industry, trying to make certain that we have those who we know, for example, that we've investigated when we talk about these groups. We've looked at these groups to determine which groups are supposed to be the most violent, threatening groups. So we've been doing this stuff, but once you add race into the factor, that's always the problem. When you add race into the formula, all of a sudden it changes everything, because you're now trying to deal with people who, you got a lot of folks in security, a lot of folks in government jobs that know and that support some of these racial beliefs that, seem to bring bias into the play. So when you've got that, you got to go inside the government and understand who's in there that has these ideas and thoughts that race plays an important role in who we're going to hire and who we're going to network with and communicate with.
Well, Matthew, as your sign behind you says bigots and badges, and we know that
that's right.
Several police officers were there, former police officers, I should say, were actually there having the attack on January 6th on the Capitol. So they were part of the insurrection, and they're still facing, of course, prosecution. But look, the nation has an enormous task ahead of it to move forward as a country to punish the perpetrators, but also prevent similar attacks, which, as you know, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, they're all predicting that there could be another domestic terror attack from white supremacists. And it remains the single most sinister, dangerous threat to our country's national security. You, as a former U.S. Marshal, what are your concerns?
Well, again, you've got a lot of people in control. For example, when this insurrection took place, they had enough information to understand that these folks was coming and these buildings were not secure. Somebody told them to stand down. That's why it was so important that we should have hearings and so forth to determine where this came from. Because if we've got all of our contingency plans in place, for example, the U.S. Marshals, we control the judicial system, courthouses for the federal judges, the Supreme Court, all of that. All of our security operations act in tandem with other security operations. Now, if somebody above us in our chain of command says stand down, don't put the type of security in a particular building that you need or whatever, you're pretty much opening it up to terrorists or whoever wants to come in and do nefarious acts or whatever they want to do. So the problem is internally. They have to go internally and see who's connected with these groups. The U.S. Marshals, we had about 7 or 8 people to attend what we called the good old boy roundups in the early 90s, where they had doll babies up, said nigger checkpoint and all of these things. And these were U.S. Marshals. Our IG investigated this stuff and found this out. This came out in my case, bigots with badges. But nothing was never really done. These people were never disciplined or anything. So what happens is we've got people on the inside that are sympathizers with a lot of these groups. And until you get in and find out who these people are and begin to make certain that these folks are rooted out of the government, you're going to have these problems of internal somebody letting their security down. No matter what operations we got in place, if you let that security down, you have the same thing that occurred at the U.S. Capitol.
Matthew Fogg, retired U.S. Marshal, thank you for your perspective, and we will wait and see exactly what the Attorney General does and how his plan moves forward. When we return, we'll continue to talk about a lot of other things going on politically. The panel joins us next.
Did you know that thousands of authors across the country have written books and published them with Page Publishing? If you've written a book, Page Publishing can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy